Boatbuilding News, the podcast. Let's do it. Welcome to Boatbuilding News, the podcast, a series of engaging interviews with key individuals from within the marine industry. I'm excited. This is going to be epic. With Southampton International Boat Show almost upon us, it was a pleasure to sit down and speak to the CEO of British Marine, Lesley Robinson. To be able to welcome Lesley Robinson, the CEO of British Marine, to the Boatbuilding News podcast. Welcome, Lesley.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's lovely to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited because I know that this must be a really, really busy time in your schedule. So we really appreciate the time you've afforded to this, definitely.
It's a pleasure.
So let's start with the marine industry as a whole, which seems quite a broad place to start. But, you know, as head of British Marine, for you, what makes the marine industry such a special place to work?
I think for me, it's a combination of factors. It's primarily for me, the people. I just love the fact that I'm working with people who are as passionate as I am in leisure marine about getting people out onto the water in any shape or form, because as you know, physically, socially, mental health wise, getting out on the water is absolutely fantastic. And I work with an industry that is equally passionate about that. And actually, I also love being on the water. I'm not very good at it at the minute. I'm learning to paddleboard actually, but but for the same reasons. It's great exercise. It's very social, all the rest of it. So for me, it's about working with that industry that helps provide that platform for getting people on the water and for boating.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know that I might be, a biased person to speak to because I adore the industry, but yep. I don't think I've ever come across an industry where there's that many people so passionate about it. People are getting out on the water in their leisure time, so it's their hobby as well as their work. And I think that everyone just genuinely loves it. It's not if you're in the marine industry, it's not a day-to-day 9-to-5 clock watching style job. It's a lifestyle, isn't it?
It is. And it might sound a bit cliche, for which apologies, but it isn't a 9-to-5 industry because we genuinely love it. That's why I think people are in it and grow to love it, even if they come in from somewhere else, which people do, obviously, as I did originally.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and I think you're absolutely right. We all, everyone's common goal is to make being out on the water more accessible, to remove those barriers and make people realise that you don't need a yacht. You can just go out and enjoy being on the water at relatively low expense, with no qualifications, to just enjoy what we've got naturally here.
And I mean, you referenced it earlier. We're preparing for the Southampton International Boat Show, which kicks off in Friday week on the 15th of September for 10 days. And one of our absolute aims there, and for those who don't know, it's a 10-day show. We get over 100,000 visitors, usually over that period of time. One of our absolute aims is to get as many of those visitors who come into the show out onto the water. And so that's a combination of things. And once you've bought your ticket and come in, most of those things are actually included in your ticket. But what happens is that we can get people out on everything from a paddleboard to a kayak to a dinghy to a motorboat to a sailboat to we have a small sort of cruiser that cruises up and down the Solent. We have a trimaran. We have a tall ship. There's all sorts. I mean, I think on last year's show we got about 14,000 people out on the water, and we're aiming to increase that this year. So it's exactly your point. People try something, and of course, in the environment of the show, it's absolutely safe. Got all the relevant health and safety. If people try something, many of them fall in love with it.
Yeah, it's about you've got the opportunity to sow the seed. And, even as families, people bring in their children to sow those seeds in the next generation of boaters as well.
Well, one of the deliberate things we do with the show, we try to keep it very reasonably priced as a good day out for the family. And one of the things we do actually is we make sure that when you buy your adult ticket, 2 kids up to the age and including 15 can come for free. So we try and make it as inclusive for a family of 2 adults and a couple of kids as possible, because that's exactly what we want to happen, for those kids to come in and be able to try things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Oh my goodness, I didn't think I could be even more excited for the show, but I absolutely am. So, I mean, if this isn't too much of a large question, as you entered your role, CEO of British Marine, did you have any specific aims, or, what was your vision for the differences you'd make in that position?
First of all, when I came in, and because as you know, it represents the leisure marine industry as a whole, which is very wide. It's everything from the manufacturers, mariners, supply chain, through to professional advisors, the whole gambit. One of the things I wanted to do was listen to members first and work out actually what members need from us as a trade organisation. So that's what we did. That's what helped me form a plan, and our manifestation of that externally is what we call our national agenda. So that had 5 pillars, which and that's a plan, if you like, we've stuck to, and we report back to on our members on how we're doing against that. So one of the things we do is representation. One of the things, if you're say a manufacturer, your voice is much stronger, obviously, if you're part of the trade association that represents leisure marine. So representation with stakeholders, with government's really important. Participation, getting people into boating in the first place is really key to everybody. And we've been, the pandemic in a way has blessed us with that, because more people have taken to the water. That is just factually true. But what we now need to do is retain those people. We have innovation and technology, which is really key to us. A real investment in people and skills. And finally, the other obvious one, which is the whole sustainability, decarbonisation. So those, I wanted to get the focus on those and then really start delivering for our members. So that was one aim. We also want to provide a platform for our businesses that are with us to grow. And that is about events like the Southampton International Boat Show, but also other events that we help our members go to internationally, and indeed our own smaller boat show in London in April. But we also want to provide B2B opportunities too. So I wanted to bring in, and did do in 22, a national conference. So we now have a national conference. We're at the moment holding it every 2 years. So our next one will be in end of February in Wales, actually, next year for our national conference. But that's a real platform for our members to network, but also to share ideas, learn about best practice, also bring somebody outside in from elsewhere in the industry. And then I suppose the third thing, British Marine do own and operate the Southampton International Boat Show, which is the UK's biggest boating festival showcase. And I think the aim there, which I hope we're fulfilling, it was to make it even more relevant and bring it up to date and continue to help the industry, because obviously our exhibitors come there and what they want to do is to sell. And it wouldn't be a successful show if that didn't happen. And to continue to develop that, I think, is my sort of third key aim.
Awesome. I loved your first one in the fact that it's almost as if it was never your plan. You came in and it was actually the industry's plan that you just you're just implementing and helping to structure. So it wasn't, hey, this is my plan stepping into my role. It was, tell me what you want, and I'll help facilitate that.
That's
so
exactly
I love that outlook.
That's exactly what we did, and I think that's the right thing to do. We're a membership organisation. We're not for profit. Any surplus that we make at the end of the day gets ploughed back into member benefits and so forth.
So if there's somebody who is, established in the marine industry, or even not established, even, starting a startup company in the marine industry, even probably a question probably more relevant for a startup company, and they're looking at, probably a tight first couple of years, as you do with any startup business, what do they gain from, apportioning an element of their income to a British Marine member, being, that membership?
It's a very, very fair question. So what I did when I came in was had a look at the breadth of our membership, and we actually divided our membership packages into different grades. And at the low end, that startup company grade, how we charge our membership fees based on marine turnover. So we've aimed a package which we call Access at our startup companies. So for anybody who's got a turnover less than the VAT threshold, it's a fixed fee, roughly at the minute £275 a year, to give you an idea. So quite, as fair as we can make it, and as comparable as we can make it with something like Federation of Small Businesses. But what they get for that is all sorts of help that a startup company generally needs. So, for example, standard contracts, marinized contracts, people can download. So, if, for example, you're a broker, startup broking company, you can download the relevant contracts off our website as one of our members. there's a legal helpline. There's help on things like VAT, customs. If you need some help on some sort of representation issue, we can give you that. At that level, a lot of the advice is digital. But we also then send you the relevant information that you need, that might be coming out of government, things that might be coming down the line that you need to have a heads up on, that sort of thing. So it's a whole mix. And the other thing we do is we also offer quite a lot of training. So, for example, coming up actually at the beginning of October again, we're running a set of 4 HR webinars, and they are very much aimed at SMEs. A small company doesn't have the benefit of having an HR officer or even necessarily a consultant. So often the person running it needs to know enough about HR to be able to know when they need to talk to someone or not, professional. And so we run a set of webinars which members can join for a very discounted level, and they get the benefit of an expert, and they can also talk to that expert with their specific questions. So we do a lot of things like that. Does that sort of give you a flavour for it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And actually, do you know what? I've been in the marine industry for the best part of 10 years, and I'm guilty of, I've never looked into the benefits of a British Marine membership. I almost maybe complacently sort of brushed it off as, because companies like to say, hey, we're part of British Marine. And actually, I didn't actually realise the benefits for the smaller startup. It's a no-brainer, really.
I think for that sort of level of money, personally, yes, I also think it's a no-brainer too, because you do have, I have what we supply here, and as I say here because I'm in the offices at British Marine, it's we have experts. I don't pretend to be a technical expert, but I have a small team who are, and they can help all of our various members with their particular technical aspects, which I couldn't pretend to, but that's the point.
Yeah, absolutely. And, if you are starting up and you're entrepreneurial and you've got an idea and you think, I want to take this idea to the marine industry, it's another element of removing barriers, because, you think you've not got access to the experts you have.
Yeah, but the other point is, by joining British Marine, you get the chance to network with others. So when you join us, you join if you like, a regional, because we're a nationwide, UK wide. So when you join us, you join a regional association. So you might join Southwest or South, depending on where you are, or North or whatever else, or Scotland. But you also can join at least one sectoral association. So, for example, if you're a mariner, you join our marina group. If you're a boat builder, and so forth. And what that gives you is access to your peers to the extent you want them. And we run, if you like, sort of smaller events for those associations. So there are lots of opportunities, often because obviously COVID changed a lot. Some of them are online, and many of them are physical. We run quite a lot of those sort of events actually within the Southampton Boat Show, because obviously so many of the industry come to the boat show in the first place. And we run a number of those, if you like, B2B association events during the week, actually. But that's another real opportunity if you're an entrepreneur and you want to find out where to find the supplies for a part, or you want to know how to export to X, or you need a bit of sort of mentoring from someone else. It's a real opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to be looking into it from a personal point of view, from my business, 100%. Yeah. So, I mean, the marine industry is changing all the time, year on year. The years are never the same as the previous year. Even if we take away the huge impact that COVID had on the boating industry, we were always evolving. So what interesting trends are you seeing recently? What trends are you experiencing?
I think the first one is the one you mentioned, which is the pandemic, and the fact that so many more people, I think, quite rightly understood that getting into boating underwater was a fairly safe activity, and genuinely the number of people in boating has increased substantially over the period, which is great to see. I think I've also seen a trend of several other trends, actually. The industry itself is becoming, I hate to use the phrase, but greener. The understanding of the whole decarbonisation agenda, the knowing that we need to change, to adapt and so forth, is now recognised. In 2006, I think it was, before my time at British Marine, but British Marine and the Royal RYA got together with an initiative called Green Blue, which is actually consumer facing, but it was raising awareness with consumers of the whole issues. But actually now the demand is from the consumer base, quite rightly.
Yeah.
And we as an industry are now doing something about that. I think there's also I call it the professionalization of the industry I'm seeing. And I think that happens in many industries, but increasingly I think people are seeing how things are done elsewhere. And there's nothing wrong with borrowing something from elsewhere if it's working really well, and learning to use that. And I think also the sort of corollary to that is probably the digital use of different channels now in terms of marketing and so forth is the other major trend we've seen, the reach that you can get now on social media, and with your product, your services, or indeed wanting to reach out to someone, I think is a fascinating trend that we've seen in our industry as well.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I'm at the forefront of that. Boatbuilding news didn't exist pre-COVID, and now it does, and it's in demand. Would it have been before COVID? I don't know so much. No. It just wasn't something that was ever considered done. If you wanted to walk around a yacht or a boat, you made an appointment and you went and walked around it. Whereas now you hop on a YouTube channel and have a virtual tour. So it is interesting. And it allows for so much, so many different types of companies to evolve and start up. And, I love seeing, startup companies because they're usually based around either technology or sustainability. It's fascinating. It's all new things, which I love to learn about.
Exactly.
So what challenges are we facing? What are you worried about in the marine industry?
I think there are some challenges at the moment. I mean, they're not necessarily just those of our industry, but with inflation, with supply chain issues which have been rife over the last few years, there are still issues with the post-Brexit effect of moving goods around, and then there's the whole people and skills piece as well. Our industry, like many others, is short of skilled workers, and it's post-Brexit, they're not coming from where they used to come from. So there is a transition, and we as British Marine work a lot on training. We run apprenticeship schemes for the industry, but there was a marked noticeable difference in terms of lack of some skills in the industry post-Brexit, particularly things like laminators and carpenters and so forth. So there are still some difficulties like that around, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I've got a pretty good insight. I mean, I've got a marine recruitment background, so I've got a pretty good insight into the lack of skills. And, I was in that role pre-COVID as well. And I remember the days when, at quite high volume, you could bring in teams and teams of people from Europe with the skills required to carry out a really good job for a British boat builder. And overnight that got turned off. And, you can't... These skills you can't just magic up overnight. It's going to take time of generations of training and upskilling and making the industry desirable. Because I also feel that we're receiving a bit of a knock-on effect of, are we promoting hands-on careers in schools? Or are we promoting digital careers and sort of different pathways for our younger generation? Who's turning around to those children in schools and saying, "Hey, look, boat building's an option."
Yep, and it's one of the things we work on. We often run sort of working groups with our various members to see how best we can assist. You're right. It's how do you get that career advisor, if you like, to know that coming into the industry, it is about boat building, but it can also equally be about marketing skills within the industry or all sorts of other things. And part of it is the lifestyle point that is often, I think, not made, that being part of this industry has a real lifestyle point which so many enjoy. We're doing quite a lot on it, but it's very difficult to chip away at it, particularly when at the minute the industry is so short of workers here and now, skilled people here and now as well. Our apprenticeship schemes are great, but they only deal with one portion of what we need, and actually the inflexibility of the apprenticeship levy and so forth, which many know about. We need to try and make that more flexible, which would help the industry a great deal.
Yeah, 100%. And also with these apprenticeships and looking at the next generation, it may be going some way to solving tomorrow's problem, but the here and now, it
doesn't.
It's like a panic skill shortage, isn't it?
Yep, exactly. So that's what we're working on quite hard with the industry at the moment.
Yeah, gosh, that's a definite challenge.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, I'm not suggesting that you leave tomorrow or anything, but the day comes when you think, I've made all the changes I
Yeah.
can, I've added all the value I can, and it's
Yeah.
time to hand over to the next person.
Yeah.
What legacy do you want to have left?
I think it probably comes from our own vision, which is a thriving industry delivering amazing on-water experiences for everyone. That's our vision for British Marine, actually. And if you sort of divide that down, the legacy is that I want our members to feel supported, to feel that they've got the body that represents their interests, that provides for their needs, which by implication would mean that I leave a sort of a thriving trade association. I want to know that the Southampton International Boat Show has years and years of life left in it, because it is, as it is at the moment, growing, and it is the place to go if you want to come and experience all things on water and boating.
Yeah.
And I guess I want to leave a team here at British Marine that, when I do hang up my deck shoes at some point, is happy to take that on into the future, I think.
Yeah, and also actually, when you talk back to your vision, I think such a real key part of that is the last bit, which is for everyone.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the point. If we can get that message out there, which is what we're working really hard on, that there are some very wonderful super yachts out there in the world, but but you don't have to start at that level.
No.
Playing around in a dinghy or enjoying paddleboarding is all part of this industry, and I think it's fantastic. And many people may stop there. Fine. As an aside, it's really interesting that the whole below deck phenomena, it's fascinating that it's really increased the propensity of young people to want to come into the industry. I think I saw a stat that sort of 23% of young people who've watched the programme want to become a captain.
Oh, really? That's quite.
And as a complete aside, I've got Captain Sandy coming down to the show on Women and Marine Day, actually, in the show. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Because that just shows that what younger generation, I mean, maybe not younger generation, the entry generation into boating, they're consuming different media to perhaps when we entered the industry, and it takes something like Below Deck to light that fire, to sow that seed, to inspire them, because they consume different media in a different way.
Exactly. And it's fascinating to see, because this having Captain Sandy to the show is a first for us. We haven't done this before with Below Deck, and it's really interesting to see huge take up as a result of that point. And what I want it to do, and I think it will, is attract that, as you say, sort of entry level audience, who maybe haven't come to the show before, but want to come and see what it's all about. Hopefully hear Captain Sandy as well if they come on the right day, and so forth. But it's about that engagement point in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's keeping the show relevant.
Yes,
to people that may have thought it was irrelevant to them, and all of a sudden they're thinking, no, hang on, is that, even if they see it as just a day out, maybe it's a day out this year, but maybe next year they're a buyer. Maybe it inspires them to enter the industry the year after.
Exactly. I think you're very right. I'll give you an example, actually. A friend of mine who isn't into boating at all. So I said to him, and he's young to me, he's in his late 20s. And I said to him, well, this year we've got this festival vibe area going on in the show, which we have. It's, the sort of the containers, shipyard, where we have a bar and a stage and so forth. And we're doing some music sets each afternoon with DJ and so forth. And we've got, I think on the first Friday, we've got the Cuban Brothers coming. On the second Friday, we've got Judge Jules coming down. Guess what? That's enough of it. He's interested enough to bring a gang of friends now to come along to that. And if by coming into the show and they want to go out on a rib and they want to try a few things, I can inspire some of them to think, wow, this is really good fun. And so they've had a good day out, but they've also tried a few things while they're there. That's what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, exactly that. So on to the Southampton Boat Show. Now, I'm going to be bold and probably upset maybe a few people and say it's my favourite show. And I think it's my hometown, so it's my absolute favourite show. I plan to be there a lot. It's not just work for me. I go all week during the show for obviously business reasons, but then I grab my kids at the weekend and we come at the weekend as well. They probably hate me, but, yeah, exactly. But it's fastly, fast upon us. It starts, like you said, a week Friday the 15th.
Yeah.
I know there's various other events, and there's obviously a smaller show in London that British Marine do, but how important is this show to British Marine?
It's hugely important to us and to the industry. I'll widen it actually, because it's really important to the industry actually as well. I mean, and it's wider than the footprint that it has, if you like. So the exhibitors are there. It's hugely important to them because they're showcasing their products and their services to over 100,000 visitors. But it's wider than that. The ripple effect of that in terms of supporting the industry, the whole supply chain, in terms of that relies on those exhibitors who are there, if you like. So it has a much wider ripple effect in terms of, if you're a boat builder and you're selling at the show, of course, that means that you are securing orders, which obviously helps the prosperity of the industry going forward. Ditto mariners or whatever else, sailing holidays, all of the rest of it. So it has that wider ripple effect. It's also really important, I think, for the inspiring others to come in and maybe come into the industry, actually. So you're probably aware, if you come quite often, that we run a schools day on the Tuesday of the show. I think this year we've got over 700 kids of various ages coming down, and we put on a whole program of events and going out on the tall ship for some of them and getting out onto water. So we do that. We run our apprenticeship graduation ceremony at the show as well. And obviously those girls and guys and girls also come into the show. So what we're also about is inspiring people who might be walking around the show with their mum and dad or whatever to say, actually, this is really quite a cool industry. We might like to join it. So there's that inspirational piece. And then beyond that, of course, we're based in Southampton. The show has a really important economic benefit for Southampton and the wider environment. In roughly, we had a economic impact assessment done in, I think, 2000, so pre-COVID, but we're now post-COVID, touch wood. And the GVA generated was about 25 million. For Southampton, so it's has significant impact on Southampton, because you imagine hotels, restaurants, or we try and buy as locally as we can as well to prep the show. So because, as you know, we literally build Europe's biggest marina for the month, that we're in for the show, and we literally build the whole thing in Mayflower Park and its surrounds. So quite a big impact all round. And on British Marine, yes, it's important to us because we're there to help promote the industry. And that's why we do it. As I said earlier, we're not for profit. We don't have shareholders. Any money that we make from that gets reinvested into the show and into members.
I always feel as well at Southampton, and maybe it is because it's my hometown and everything, but as you walk in, it's almost like a celebration of the British marine industry, because you look around and you almost think, look at us. Look at what we're doing. Isn't this great? And it's got that feeling to it, of just celebrating how great the British marine industry really is.
I think it does. And what we're working quite hard on actually with the local council actually is trying to get more local residents to come in and feel that as well and to see what's going on. Sometimes it frightens me when you hear statistics around so many Southampton residents haven't really ever got onto the water or come down. So we're very much also about making it very accessible. We have a local residents rate, for example, to try and get to encourage people to come in, and it doesn't have to be about delighted if they go down to the marina and see the 380 boats, or I think we've got 380 this year on the marina. But also, this year we've got, as you walk into the entrance of West Quay, just on the right there, we've built a complete, we've called it the Beach Haven and Water Sports Lake. So we're going to we have a large water sports area, so you can do things like canoeing and paddleboarding on that, and we have got a beach there going in. So come down to the beach.
Is that new? Did we have that last year?
We didn't have a beach last year. The beach is new. Yep.
Oh, I love it. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and there might be ice creams for free at some points in time, just saying. So
Well, you've just made convincing my children to come and look, because they say, "Oh, you're not taking us to work, Mummy." You've just made convincing them a hell of a lot easier. There's a beach, there's ice cream. Come on, kids.
So it is a celebration of all things boating, but what we want to be is very accessible to everybody.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. So personally for you, if you're entering the show and it's, what is it you're looking forward to the most? What is it that you're going to first?
That's because I love so many things about the show. That's really hard, actually. For me personally, this is where I confess, I am quite a big Below Deck fan. So, so I am quite looking forward to Captain Sandy and to our Women in Marine Day. So we run a Women in Marine Day on the Thursday of the show.
One of my favourite events of the year. I'm really looking forward to that. So tell me all about it.
Well, so that day has a number of things in it. We have Captain Sandy doing a sort of meet and greet, and she's going to do a bit of an interview and then a meet and greet and a book signing on the foredeck stage, roughly about 11:15 that day, I think it is, for an hour or so. We've then got a couple of mental well-being sessions actually running. Which we did it last year actually for the first time on a Women in Marine Day, and it went down really well. Just thinking about looking after people within the work environment and how you best do that, whether you're running the organisation or whether you're part of the organisation. So we're running those. And then we have our one that I suspect you know about, which is we have a sort of a networking and panel session at 4:00 in the afternoon on the Thursday. And we have a great panel of speakers this year. We're not excluding men. Men are very welcome to come along. And actually, the panel this year are talking particularly about effective communication within business. Yeah.
This is really interesting because I'm part of a mentorship group called Women in Boatbuilding, and it's been something that's come up in a couple of our recent meetings about effective communication, because it's an education piece, I think, because if you're we're women in a male-dominated industry, and I don't mean that in a negative way. That's just factually speaking. And male-to-male peers, colleagues communicate in a way that they then change when they're talking to perhaps a female colleague, in a way that can sometimes come across as not great if you're on the receiving end of it. But however, it's an education piece, because sometimes I don't think it's meant that way, or they know about how to effectively communicate in a way that they are making their conversations inclusive to females, making them feel comfortable in the workplace. There's so many different factors to women in a male-dominated industry, from simple things like, are there female cut uniforms?
Yeah.
Is the PPE suitable for a female? Are the facilities in a workshop suitable for a female? There's so many different elements, but I think the communication part of it is probably the hardest one to educate on, because it's not a practical thing. It's not saying make sure they've got accessible to female toilets, change the cut of the uniform. There's practical steps we can put in. But to say to a whole company, how are you effectively communicating to your female workforce, is actually quite hard.
It is, which is why we deliberately have a panel who are women in our industry. So someone from Lumar, somebody from Right Link, for example, and a couple of the sort of communication experts as well on that panel to discuss exactly what you're talking about and how their real life experiences of things that have worked to make change, things that haven't worked to make change. Actually, it's a facilitated discussion, but of course there's also time for Q&A from the audience and so forth as well, and it usually gets to be quite a very lively discussion, which I think is brilliant actually. And then of course there's the whole opportunity for everybody to stand around and have a chat with each other afterwards over a glass of, which is also I think quite nice to do.
Yeah, and I know you say a lively discussion, but I love that. I almost want those discussions to be quite challenging, because then they're sort of emotion led and they're actually really important, and we get to the depths of what the problem is, if there is a problem, and the solutions to it. And
I encourage our sort of male counterparts to come along as well, because actually by listening they learn such a lot.
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, it is difficult, and I think that we are in the minority being females in this industry. So I think events like this actually provide the opportunity to develop a support network as well. If you're a female in the industry, female entrepreneur in the industry, or, doing what I do in the industry, putting yourself out there as a female, I think it's great to know other women in your situation that you can bounce ideas off, that you can say, hey, I'm looking for a bit of support with this project, or have you ever come across this situation? Because we do communicate differently, we do work differently, and sometimes having a female network is really beneficial if you are in the minority of a male-dominated industry.
I completely agree with it. I would love to take this further. At the moment, just for capacity and resources, we're doing this at the show. We have an ambition to try and do something of what you're describing that's more than just a show every year, that we find some way, whether it's a WhatsApp group, whether it's some sort of informal mentoring. We would love to we being the small working group, there's 5 of us who get this stuff to happen. It's not really part of the day job, but we want it's really important. And so we want to try and move that forward. Haven't got there yet, but it's work in progress.
Yeah, it is, but and that's the thing, isn't it? As long as there's progress, that's all we can go for. Progress all the time. I'd love to pick that conversation up further with you and add value if I can.
Yes, please. I'd love to.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. So just a couple of final questions.
Yep.
If you can, it might be quite hard because I know that you feel so passionate about it, but if you can pick just 3 words to describe Southampton International Boat Show, which 3 would they be?
Family friendly, that's 1 word.
We can put a hyphen in it.
A hyphen. Exciting. 2. What's the other one I'd do? I'm going to have another hyphen. Ever evolving. So it's different each year. It is different each year. So if you're returning, things that are different.
Yeah, it is different each year. I come every year, and it's always, it's always bigger. I'm always amazed at how big it is every year, but it's not just bigger, it's better as well. So, I'm looking forward to it every year.
Excellent.
And the final question, you mentioned you get out on the water. Where's your favourite place on the South Coast to do that? Actually, not just the South Coast, anywhere in the world.
Ooh, Lord. Once upon a time I used to sail. I only don't sail now because I have a husband who doesn't like water particularly. And we do other things together. That's true. But I used to adore sailing out in the British Virgin Islands, out there. And then in terms of more recently, I adore paddleboarding down sort of in the sort of Devon area down there. Actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yes, absolute favourite. Oh, it sounds amazing.
Those are my favourites.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Lesley. I've really enjoyed our conversation. I am even more excited for the Southampton Boat Show to kick off next week, and I look forward to seeing you. Well,
I look forward to it too, and I look forward to the further conversations about women in marine as well. Thank you so much for having me.
I really hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, then it would be awesome if you could leave a rating or a review. Don't forget to subscribe so you can listen to us again. See you soon.